Welcome, today's story is full of drama. Like and subscribe to stay updated. Let's get started.
I'm Daniel, a mechanical engineer working for a well-established renewable energy company. My ex-wife Emma is 34, a talented event planner with an extraordinary gift for transforming even the simplest ideas into grand, unforgettable occasions. Together, we had Lily, our bright and funny 5-year-old daughter who adored dinosaurs and wouldn't go anywhere without her little explorer hat perched on her head. People who saw us together probably thought we were the perfect family. For the longest time, I thought so too. But I was wrong. Emma and I met 7 years ago at a Green Tech Expo in Denver. I was there presenting a prototype for a solar-powered energy grid while she was managing the event. My younger brother Lucas, also 34, introduced us. Lucas was always the charismatic one in the family, the guy who could charm his way out of a speeding ticket or talk his way into a VIP section he had no business being in. At the time, he was dabbling in real estate and working on what he liked to call his empire. He and Emma had hit it off while working together on a charity gala a few months earlier, so he thought we'd get along as well. "Daniel, this is Emma," he said with his signature grin. "She's way too good for you, but hey, maybe you'll get lucky." I laughed it off and we spent the rest of the evening talking about everything. Our favorite movies, why she loved planning events, and the solar project I'd been working on for years. I remember thinking, how is this woman even real? As we were leaving, Lucas nudged me and said, "You're welcome," as if he had already won some imaginary matchmaking trophy. Emma and I started dating soon after that night. It was fast. Easy. Too easy, maybe, but at the time I didn't question it. Emma had this incredible way of making every moment feel special, as if life itself was one big celebration just waiting to happen. It didn't take long for me to fall head over heels for her. Lucas was thrilled for us, always saying things like, "You finally found someone who can keep up with you." Looking back, though, that comment felt strange coming from him. He was always around, helping me plan surprises for Emma and hyping me up whenever I doubted myself. When I proposed to her a year later, it was Lucas who went with me to pick out the ring. He even suggested I propose during a weekend getaway to a vineyard in Napa, a place she had mentioned loving. Life after the wedding felt like a dream. We bought a small, cozy house on the outskirts of Austin. Emma dove into building her event planning business while I worked my way up at my firm. She even designed Lily's nursery herself, filling it with pastel rainbows and stuffed animals that had some theme I never fully understood. Lucas was always around, popping by for dinner or helping with odd jobs around the house. I'll admit it felt good to have him so involved in our lives. But if I'm being honest, there were moments when something felt off. Sometimes when Lucas and Emma were together, their jokes seemed a little too inside, like they were sharing a secret I wasn't part of. Other times, Lucas would show up unannounced, acting a bit too comfortable in our home. I remember once when Emma and I were arguing about her overspending on party decorations. Lucas walked in and immediately sided with her. "She's just trying to make life beautiful. Daniel, lighten up." It didn't sit right with me, but I brushed it off. Lucas was my brother. Emma was my wife. I had no reason to doubt either of them. Then Lily was born, and everything changed. If I thought life was busy before, it became a whirlwind after she arrived. Late nights feeding her, early mornings rushing to work, and weekends spent trying to catch up on sleep. It all blurred together. Emma seemed to thrive in the chaos, juggling her business and motherhood like a pro. Meanwhile, Lucas became the fun uncle, swooping in with toys and treats, giving us a much-needed break. I thought we were a team, the three of us. Lucas had always been my rock. Growing up after our parents died, he stepped into the role of protector, even though I was technically the older brother. I trusted him with my life just like I trusted Emma. Now I see how blind I was. I never questioned why Lucas knew so much about Emma's business trips, or why she would sometimes mention things to him that she hadn't told me. I never questioned why Lucas always seemed to know exactly what Emma wanted for her birthday, or why he went out of his way to help her with things I didn't even know she needed help with. I was too focused on my work, too busy trying to be the perfect husband and father, to notice the cracks forming right in front of me. They say hindsight is 20/20ths, and I hate how true that is. If I'd paid closer attention, maybe I would have seen what was really happening. Maybe I would have asked more questions, dug a little deeper. But at the time, all I saw was what I wanted to see. A happy family, a loving wife, and a brother I could count on. I had no idea how much of it was a lie. Things began to shift about 2 years ago. Emma started spending more time on her event planning business, which I thought was just a normal part of her growing success. She was booking bigger clients, more elaborate events, and even landing out-of-town gigs. At first, I was proud of her. She had always talked about wanting to be independent and successful, and she was finally making it happen. But then the work started taking over. It was the little things at first. She used to always tell me about her day, sharing funny stories about clients or how things had come together for an event. But that stopped. If I asked how her day went, she'd just say busy and leave it at that. When I pushed for more details, she'd say she was too tired to talk about work. I figured she just needed a break. Then came the girls' weekends. She told me her friends were planning spa getaways to unwind from the stress of work. And honestly, I didn't think much of it. Emma didn't take much time for herself, and I figured she deserved a break. But after the first few trips, they started becoming more frequent. Every couple of months, there'd be another one. I started noticing other things too. She was constantly on her phone. When I asked who she was texting, she'd say it was a client or Rachel, her best friend. She never used to hide her screen from me, but now she would tilt it away or step out of the room to take calls. I told myself it was just part of her job. Clients could be demanding. Our intimacy started to fade as well. Emma had always been affectionate, but suddenly she seemed distant. I remember one night she came to bed wearing this expensive lingerie I'd never seen before. She looked amazing, but when I made a move, she just said she was too tired and rolled over. That became the norm. She was either too tired or not in the mood. After a while, I stopped trying. I told myself it was just a phase, that we were both busy with work and Lily, and eventually we'd get back to where we were. What really started eating at me, though, was how much she seemed to be talking to Lucas rather than me. They'd always been close, but now it felt like he knew more about her life than I did. If she was stressed about a project, Lucas would show up with her favorite dessert or take Lily out for the afternoon so Emma could relax. It was thoughtful, sure, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being pushed out of my own marriage. There was one night in particular that really stuck with me. We were hosting a dinner party for some of her clients, and Lucas came over early to help set up. I was in the kitchen slicing vegetables when I overheard them laughing in the living room. Emma said something like, "You always know how to make me feel better?" And Lucas replied, "That's what I'm here for." It shouldn't have bothered me, but it did. I told myself I was being paranoid, that they were just close because we were all like family. But the feeling lingered, so I brought it up to Emma later. "Do you think you lean on Lucas too much?" I asked as we were getting ready for bed. She looked at me as if I had just asked if the sky was green. "What are you talking about? He's your brother. He's just helping out. You should be grateful." I felt like an idiot for even mentioning it, so I dropped it. But that uneasy feeling never really went away. Lucas, for his part, was always there with advice whenever I confided in him. If I mentioned that Emma seemed distant, he'd say, "She's under a lot of pressure. Just give her space." If I complained about the lack of intimacy, he'd laugh and say, "Welcome to married life, bro." He had this way of making me feel like I was overthinking everything. And I believed him, because he was Lucas, my brother, my best friend. But it wasn't just Lucas. I started noticing changes in how Emma acted around Lily, too. She had always been an amazing mom. Attentive, loving, and so patient. But lately, it felt like she was using Lily as a shield. If things got tense between us, she'd immediately pivot to suggesting something involving Lily. Taking her to the park, playing dress-up, or settling in for a movie night. At first, I thought it was just her way of diffusing tension. But over time, it felt more deliberate, like she was avoiding being alone with me. As our 7th anniversary approached, I found myself holding on to a flicker of hope. I had been thinking about it for months, brainstorming ways to rekindle what we had lost. I decided I wanted to do something special, something that would remind Emma how much I loved her and what we had built together. Things had been strange between us, distant, even strained, but I kept telling myself it was just a phase. Life was busy, stressful even. We were juggling work, parenting, and the inevitable pressures of life. Surely a meaningful celebration would be enough to break through the walls that seemed to be growing between us. I imagined it over and over. An evening filled with warmth and laughter, a chance to rediscover each other. I hoped it could shake off the weight of the tension that had settled in and remind us of the love that had once felt so effortless. Little did I know how much more fragile everything had already become. I decided to recreate one of our best memories, the weekend we spent at a vineyard in Napa when we first started dating. It was one of those magical moments when we both let our guards down completely, laughing, sipping wine, and forgetting the rest of the world existed. Emma had loved it so much that she talked about going back for years. I thought it would be the perfect setting to remind her of how much we meant to each other. A way to reconnect. I rented a private space at the vineyard and collaborated closely with the staff to ensure everything was just right. They helped me design a menu featuring her favorite foods, from the roasted mushroom tartlets she couldn't stop talking about to the lavender panna cotta we had that weekend. I even hired a small jazz band to play her favorite songs. To make it even more special, I invited close family and friends, including her best friend Rachel, who had just moved back to Texas after years away. I wanted it to feel like a celebration of everything she loved and everything we had built together. Of course, Lucas was one of the first people I told. "Dude, this is perfect," he said when I laid out the plan. He leaned back in his chair, a wide grin spreading across his face. "Emma is going to love it. You've really thought this through." "I hope so," I said, trying to sound confident. "Things have been off lately, you know? I just want her to feel special. I want her to remember how much I love her." Lucas clapped me on the shoulder, his easy confidence reassuring. "She will. Trust me, this is exactly the kind of thing she'll appreciate. You're a good husband, man." It felt good to hear that, especially from Lucas. He even offered to help with the setup. "I'll handle the heavy lifting," he joked, flexing his arm. "You just focus on keeping her surprised." I laughed, grateful for his support. "Thanks, man. It means a lot." "Are you kidding?" he replied. "You two are my favorite people. I wouldn't miss this for the world." At the time, I thought he was just being a supportive brother, stepping in like he always did. Lucas had a way of making himself indispensable. Always in the middle of things, always eager to help. I didn't question it. I was too busy trying to make everything perfect for Emma. Looking back now, I wish I had paid more attention. On the night of the party, everything seemed to fall into place. Emma thought we were just going out for a quiet dinner. So when we arrived and everyone yelled surprise, she looked genuinely stunned. She hugged me tightly, her eyes sparkling with tears. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I'd done something right. The vineyard was beautiful, with twinkling string lights draped across the patio and candles flickering on every table. The jazz band played softly in the background, and the air smelled of lavender and fresh grapes. Emma kept saying how perfect everything was, how she couldn't believe I'd gone to all this trouble. For a little while, I actually believed we were happy. Dinner started off wonderfully. The food was incredible. The wine flowed freely. Everyone seemed genuinely happy to be there. Emma sat between me and Rachel, laughing and chatting like the stress of the past few months had completely melted away. Her laughter was like a balm, soothing the doubts that had been gnawing at me for weeks. Across the table, Lucas was in his usual form, raising his glass at every opportunity and cracking jokes that had everyone at the table laughing, their faces flushed with joy. For a moment, it felt like everything was falling into place. Then Rachel stood to make a toast. "To Daniel and Emma," she began, her voice warm and steady. "You two are the kind of couple that reminds us all what real love looks like." Her words made me smile, and I felt Emma's hand brush mine under the table. But then Rachel hesitated, her smile faltering slightly as she added, "And to Lucas, who's been such a rock for Emma these past couple of years." Her words hit me like a punch in the chest. My stomach churned, and the pleasant buzz of the evening evaporated in an instant. I glanced at Emma, expecting her to join in the cheers, but her face had gone pale. She reached for her glass and took a long, deliberate sip. Avoiding my eyes, I tried to steady my voice, forcing a casual tone as I asked, "What does she mean by that?" Emma set her glass down a little too quickly, the sound sharper than it should have been. Forcing a smile, she said, "Oh, Rachel's just talking about how Lucas has been helping out with Lily and everything, with all my work stress." "Helping out," I repeated, my eyes narrowing slightly as I turned to Lucas. He met my gaze with that same easy grin, but something about it felt off now. "Yeah, just lending a hand when I can," Lucas chimed in. "You know how crazy Emma's schedule can get. I figured someone should step up for Lily when things got hectic." My chest tightened. "Right," I said slowly, trying to keep my tone neutral. "That's thoughtful of you." Lucas raised his glass again, seemingly oblivious to the tension brewing. "To family, huh? Always there when you need them." Emma shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her forced smile not reaching her eyes. "It's not a big deal, Daniel," she added quickly, almost dismissively. "Just logistics." "Logistics," I echoed, the word tasting bitter in my mouth. I turned to Rachel, who suddenly seemed very interested in her glass of wine. "Anything else I should know?" "Rachel?" Her eyes darted to Emma before she stammered. No. I just meant Lucas has been, supportive. That's all." The table had grown quieter. The cheerful chatter from earlier was replaced by an awkward stillness. I looked back at Emma, my heart pounding in my chest. She refused to meet my eyes, instead reaching for her fork and poking at the food on her plate. "Emma," I said softly but firmly, leaning closer to her, "is there something you're not telling me?" Her hand trembled slightly as she set the fork down. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Daniel, this isn't the time or place." The room felt like it was closing in on me. I forced a tight smile and leaned back in my chair, my appetite long gone. The rest of the dinner passed in strained politeness, but the weight of the unspoken words lingered heavily between us. Rachel's voice cut through the tension at the table, sharper now. "Helping," she said, the word heavy and pointed. The atmosphere shifted instantly, a thick silence settling over everyone. Lucas laughed, the sound forced and too loud. "Come on, Rachel, don't make it weird," he said, waving a hand like he could brush away the discomfort. "I'm just doing what family does." A few awkward chuckles rippled around the table, but the laughter felt hollow. The conversation limped forward, awkward and stilted. But the moment lingered, gnawing at me. I tried to engage, to distract myself, but my mind kept circling back to Rachel's tone, to the way Emma's shoulders had tensed when she spoke. Emma stayed quiet for the rest of the evening. Her laughter from earlier was completely gone. Rachel avoided my gaze entirely, and Lucas carried on like nothing had happened. By the time we left, my stomach was in knots. In the car, I tried to broach the subject. "So, what was that back there with Rachel?" Emma stared out the window, her reflection in the glass unreadable. "You know how Rachel is," she said dismissively. "She doesn't always think before she speaks." I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "Yeah, but what did she mean by Lucas has been such a rock for you?" "That didn't sound like nothing." She sighed, the sound heavy with irritation. "Daniel, it's not a big deal. Can we not ruin a perfect night with this?" "Perfect," I echoed, my voice lower now. "Let it go," she said firmly, her tone signaling the end of the conversation. I clenched my jaw, swallowing the questions still bubbling up inside me. The rest of the drive home was silent, except for the occasional sound of Emma shifting in her seat. The next morning, my phone buzzed as I was sipping my coffee. It was Rachel. "Hey, can we talk?" she asked, her voice tense. I frowned, still groggy from the restless night before. "Sure. What's going on?" She hesitated, and I could hear her draw in a shaky breath. "I shouldn't have said what I did at the party," she began. "It wasn't my place, and I'm sorry for that. But Daniel, there's something you need to know." My stomach tightened. "What are you talking about, Rachel?" Another pause. Longer this time. I could almost hear the conflict in her silence, the way she was struggling to find the right words. "Can I come over?" she finally asked. "It's better if I show you." "Rachel," I said, my voice low and careful. "What's going on?" "I'll explain when I get there," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. When she arrived, She looked nervous, her eyes darting around like she expected someone to jump out at her. She clutched her purse tightly, her knuckles white. "I'm sorry," she said as soon as I opened the door. "I didn't know if I should even get involved. But I can't keep this to myself anymore." "Rachel, what are you talking about?" I asked, my pulse quickening. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small flash drive, handing it to me without meeting my eyes. "This," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I stared at it, then back at her. "What's on here?" "You need to see it for yourself," she replied, her voice cracking. "But Daniel, I'm so sorry." The weight in her words sent a chill down my spine. I swallowed hard and stepped aside to let her in, dreading whatever truth that flash drive was about to reveal. "What's this?" I asked, holding up the flash drive, my voice sharp with confusion and dread. Rachel's gaze faltered. "Just look at it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It explains everything that's been going on between Lucas and Emma for years. Behind your back." I stared at her, my chest tightening. "What do you mean? What's on here, Rachel?" She swallowed hard, avoiding my eyes. "I shouldn't have been the one to tell you, Daniel. But you deserve to know the truth. Just look at it." "I'm sorry." She turned and left before I could say another word. For what felt like an eternity, I sat on the couch, the flash drive in my hand. My laptop was open on the coffee table, the cursor blinking on the desktop, waiting for me to make a move. Couldn't. My thoughts were a storm, whirling with fear, anger, and denial. I paced the room, running my hands through my hair, muttering under my breath. What if she's wrong? What if it's a misunderstanding? But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Rachel wouldn't have come to me unless she was sure. Finally, I sat down, my hands trembling as I plugged in the flash drive. It took every ounce of willpower to click on the first file. It was an email, dated 2.5 years ago, right before Emma's first girls' trip. The subject line hit me like a brick. "Miss you." I hesitated, staring at it, the words blurring as tears welled up in my eyes. Finally, I clicked it open. The message was short, but every word cut like a knife. "Emma, I wish I could see you this weekend. This is getting harder to hide. I know I am, but it's worth it. You know that, right? Daniel doesn't have to know." My fists clenched, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. I stared at the screen, my vision swimming. My stomach churned, and for a moment, I thought I might be sick. "Years," I whispered to the empty room, the word catching in my throat. How long has this been going on?" I told myself to keep going, to rip the bandage off no matter how much it hurt. The next email was even worse. "Lucas, I'll see you tomorrow at the usual spot. Daniel thinks I'm in meetings all day, so we're good. Can't wait." I scrolled through email after email, each one more damning than the last. They talked about meeting up while I was at work, using her business trips as cover for their weekends together. They planned everything meticulously, cover stories, fake schedules, even what to say if I or Rachel ever started asking questions. My hands shook as I opened one marked weekend plans. "Emma, I've got everything set for this weekend. Daniel's too busy with his project to notice. You're amazing at keeping him off the trail. Can't wait to see you." I slammed the laptop shut, breathing hard, my chest heaving with anger and betrayal. How could she do this? I said aloud, my voice cracking. With him, of all people? The room felt suffocating, the walls closing in as my mind replayed every moment of the last 2 years. Every business trip, every late-night text she brushed off, every excuse that I had accepted without question. I picked up my phone, my finger hovering over Emma's contact. I wanted to call her, to confront her, to demand answers. But what would I even say? How could I put this betrayal into words? Instead, I called Rachel. She answered on the first ring. "Did you see it?" she asked softly. "I saw enough," I said, my voice hollow. "How long have you known?" There was a long pause before she answered. "I started suspecting a year ago," she admitted. "I overheard something Lucas said on the phone. I confronted Emma, but she swore it was nothing. I didn't believe her, Daniel, but I didn't know how to prove it. When I saw the emails on Lucas's laptop, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, my voice breaking. Another pause. I didn't know how, she said, her voice filled with regret. I'm sorry, Daniel. I should have told you the moment I found out. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me, and hung up without saying another word. Then I sat there in the silence, trying to piece together the shattered remains of the life I thought I had. I didn't know whether to scream, throw my laptop across the room, or collapse under the weight of what I had just uncovered. My chest felt tight. My mind was spinning with rage and disbelief. Yet, despite the overwhelming emotions, something compelled me to click on another folder. One labeled Photos. For a moment, I hovered over the folder, unsure if I could handle more. But curiosity, or maybe sheer self-destruction, won out. With trembling hands, I opened it. The first few images seemed innocent enough. Lucas and Emma, laughing over drinks at what looked like a beach house. Could have been a family outing if I hadn't already known better. But as I continued scrolling, the photos became harder to stomach. There were pictures of them lounging in hotel robes, their smiles wide and intimate, as though they were the only two people in the world. One image stopped me cold. Emma, lying on a bed in lingerie I'd never seen before, her eyes locked onto the camera. Lucas's hand was visible in the corner of the frame, unmistakably his, resting possessively on her thigh. Then, somewhere they were having sex, and Emma was clearly enjoying every second of it. My breathing grew ragged, but it was too late to stop. I was past the point of no return. Then, I stumbled upon something that sent a chill down my spine. Mixed in with the more recent photos were older ones. Pictures from over 7 years ago, long before Emma and I had even gotten married. My stomach churned as I realized. Some were from her college days, back when Lucas was supposedly too busy building his real estate empire to bother with relationships. One photo in particular made my heart drop. It was taken at a park. I immediately recognized it. The same park where Emma and I had gone on our third date. In the photo, Lucas and Emma were sitting on a bench, their bodies close, laughing at something only they shared. I stared at the screen, my vision blurring with tears of rage and heartbreak. 7 years, I whispered to myself. Has this been going on all along? The realization hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just a recent betrayal. This was a thread that had woven itself through our entire relationship. A dark undercurrent I had been blind to. Every memory I thought was ours alone was now tainted by the possibility that Lucas had been there all along, lurking in the shadows of my life. My mind raced as I tried to piece it all together. Had she ever truly loved me? Was I nothing more than a convenient placeholder while she carried on with Lucas? Every affectionate word, every kiss, every promise, now felt like a cruel joke. I slammed the laptop shut, my hands trembling, and buried my face in my palms. I felt betrayed, humiliated, utterly broken, but most of all, I felt lost. I didn't know who I could trust anymore, least of all the woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. As I delved deeper into the Facebook messages, my worst fears were confirmed. The earliest exchanges dated back to when Lucas first introduced me to Emma. At first, the messages seemed casual, but as I read on, their sinister undertone became unmistakable. They spoke of the perfect plan, detailing how Lucas had carefully orchestrated everything, how he had convinced Emma that I was the safe choice, the dependable, responsible older brother with a solid career, someone who could offer her the life of comfort and stability she supposedly desired. But the betrayal didn't stop there. One message from Lucas struck me like a knife to the chest. Daniel will give you everything you need. He's predictable. I'm not. But I'll always be here for you. He can be your husband, while I can always be there to take care of your special needs. The sheer audacity of it made my blood boil. Every word felt like a calculated mockery of my trust, my love, my faith in both of them. They hadn't just betrayed me, they had used me, reducing my entire marriage to some cruel, twisted scheme. I couldn't bear to read anymore. My stomach churned as I slammed the laptop shut, the sound reverberating like a gunshot in the otherwise silent room. Rage and disbelief coursed through me, a toxic cocktail of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. I stumbled into the kitchen, desperate to escape the suffocating reality of what I had just uncovered. My hands trembled as I grabbed a glass and filled it with water. But the tremors were so violent that I spilled half the glass onto the counter, the cold water soaking through my shirt sleeve. It felt as though the ground beneath me had shifted, as though my entire world had been pulled out from under me. My marriage, my relationship with Lucas, none of it had been real. Every moment I thought I was building a life with Emma was a cruel facade, a pretense crafted behind my back. But then another thought blindsided me. What about Lily? What if she wasn't even mine? The possibility hit me like a sledgehammer, and I nearly collapsed under its weight. I staggered to the kitchen table and sank into a chair, burying my face in my hands. My mind raced as I tried to process the unthinkable. If Lily wasn't mine, what would that mean for everything I had sacrificed and built? For the life I thought I had? 1,000 questions clawed at me, each more urgent than the last. Should I confront Emma outright? Call Lucas and demand the truth? Or would it be smarter to wait, to collect every piece of evidence, so there would be no way they could deny it? Couldn't decide. Torn between my boiling anger and the need for clarity. Just then, my phone buzzed on the table, jolting me from my spiraling thoughts. A text from Emma. Running late. Don't wait up. Love you. Red heart. The sheer audacity of those words made my blood boil. The nerve to send such a casual, affectionate message, while I sat here drowning in the bitter truth of her betrayal, was almost more than I could take. For a moment, I wanted to call her, to scream down the phone, to demand answers, but I stopped myself. If I confronted her now, she'd have time to concoct excuses, to twist the narrative in her favor. I needed to stay calm, to be strategic. Instead, I dialed Rachel's number, my hand shaking as I pressed the call button. She picked up on the second ring. Rachel, I said, my voice trembling with anger and pain. Why didn't you tell me sooner? There was a long pause on the other end of the line before she finally responded. Her voice was quiet, heavy with guilt. I didn't know how, she admitted. I didn't even know if I should. Her words hung in the air, thick with tension. I felt my grip on the phone tighten as she continued. Emma's been my best friend since college, Rachel said, her tone growing more unsteady. But I couldn't keep lying for her. Not after I saw the emails. My breath caught. Lying for her? I repeated, my jaw clenching. How long have you known? Rachel hesitated. Then, she confessed. I found out about the affair almost a year ago. My stomach dropped. Emma told me she was going to end it, she continued, that she just needed time to figure things out. I believed her. Or maybe I wanted to believe her. But then I found the flash drive. I was speechless. A part of me wanted to thank Rachel for finally coming forward, for peeling back the layers of this twisted web. But another part of me, the angry part, couldn't believe she had known, and kept it from me, for so long. What else do you know? I asked, my voice cracking under the weight of everything I was hearing. There was a pause before Rachel responded, her tone uneasy. Daniel, it's not just the affair. There's more you need to know. I clenched my jaw. What more could there possibly be? She took a deep breath. Lucas's business. It's not as legit as he makes it out to be. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. First my wife, now my brother's career. I felt the ground beneath me start to crumble. What are you talking about? I demanded. I didn't want to believe it, she admitted. But when I found those emails, I started digging. And I found something else. Financial records, transactions, money being moved around in ways that don't make sense. Lucas isn't just screwing around with Emma. He's laundering money through her business. My stomach dropped. What? It's all in the files I gave you, Rachel continued. Emma's event planning company? It's been funneling money through Lucas's real estate firm for years. I felt sick. What started as a betrayal of my heart had now turned into something criminal. Something far beyond what I had imagined. I couldn't sit back and let this go. If Lucas's business was shady, it meant the betrayal ran far deeper than just infidelity. I grabbed the laptop again, desperate to uncover the truth. I opened a folder I hadn't seen before, labeled Financials. Inside, spreadsheets, invoices, transaction records. I skimmed through them, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Payments from Emma's event planning clients, being funneled into accounts tied directly to Lucas's real estate firm. Some documents had flag notes like, "Transfer to offshore split between accounts." The more I scrolled, the clearer it became. They weren't just having an affair. They were laundering money. The whole thing was a sham, a far-reaching scheme that involved my wife, my brother, and who knows how many others. I leaned back in my chair, overwhelmed by a cold numbness that settled in. The weight of everything I had uncovered felt too much to bear. What started as a personal betrayal had now morphed into something far darker. A criminal enterprise. I couldn't take this on by myself. I had to confront them, but I also needed help. This wasn't something I could handle alone. I decided to confront Emma first. Lucas wasn't around, and I thought that if I caught her off guard, she might reveal more than she intended. I needed to see her face, to hear her try to explain it all. I wanted to witness her own admission of guilt, to see if there was any remorse. When she came home that evening, her cheerful demeanor made my stomach churn. She dropped her bag by the door and flashed me a smile, as though everything was normal, as though nothing had changed. "Hey," she said casually, like she was unaware of the storm brewing. I took a deep breath, and then I said it. "Emma, we need to talk." Her smile faltered, but she masked it quickly. Nodding, she walked into the living room. She sank into her usual spot on the couch, curling up with her legs tucked underneath her, like she always did. I stood across from her, too angry to sit, too filled with questions to stay composed. "I know about you and Lucas." Her face drained of color. For a split second, I thought she might deny it, that she might try to explain it away with one of her usual justifications. But instead, she just looked down at her hands, her voice barely above a whisper. "How did you find out?" No denial, no excuses, just quiet acceptance. "I found the emails, the photos, everything." She let out a shaky breath, her hands gripping the fabric of her pants. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just happened. Don't feed me that." I snapped. "This wasn't some accident. You planned this, both of you." Her eyes welled up with tears, but I didn't care. "It's not just the affair." I continued, pacing in front of her, trying to contain the chaos inside me. "What about all the money? You and Lucas, what were you doing with it?" I saw the files. "Were you using your business to launder money for him?" Her head snapped up, her wide eyes locked with mine. For a moment, I saw genuine panic flicker across her face. "I didn't know," she said quickly, her voice pleading. "I didn't know what he was doing. I swear. Don't lie to me." My voice rose in intensity. "Not anymore. I have the proof. You knew exactly what was going on, and you helped him cover it all up." Tears streamed down her face, but I couldn't bring myself to care. The damage was done. The next morning, I made a decision. I gathered everything, every piece of evidence. The flash drive, the files, the emails, the records, and I drove straight to the police station. I didn't hesitate. I didn't care what happened to Emma or Lucas. They had made their choices. Now they would have to live with the consequences. When I handed over the evidence, the officers immediately took it seriously. One of them skimmed through the files, his brow furrowing. "This is big," he muttered. "We're going to need more details." For the next several hours, I told them everything. How I stumbled upon the affair. How I pieced together the financial records. How it all connected to Lucas's shady dealings. That same evening, there was a knock on the door. The police had arrived, with a warrant. Emma's arrest was swift. The officers led her away in handcuffs, her sobs echoing down the hallway. She pleaded with me, begging me to believe that she hadn't known the full extent of Lucas's operations. But I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Lucas wasn't far behind. By the end of the week, his office was raided. He was arrested along with two of his business partners, men who had been part of his financial dealings. men who had also played a role in the mess he created. As for me, I walked away, with full custody of Lily, a fresh start, and the knowledge that the people who betrayed me would finally pay for what they had done. What would you do if your spouse and sibling betrayed you? Comment below, like, share, and subscribe for more shocking stories.